The message arrived on a Tuesday morning, piercing through Earth's communication networks like a blade through paper. Scientists at the Deep Space Monitoring Station in Chile were the first to detect it. The signal was impossibly strong, carrying more data than humanity had ever received from space. Within hours, every government on Earth had a copy. Within a day, the world knew they were not alone. The Galactic Council had found humanity. The message played across every screen, translated automatically into every human language by technology, so advanced it seemed like magic. A creature appeared in the holographic display, tall and graceful with silver skin that shimmered like mercury. Its eyes were large and dark, without pupils, giving it an unsettling appearance. This was Ambassador Thelraxis, representative of the Galactic Council. His voice was smooth, almost musical, but the words carried the weight of absolute authority. Greetings, humans of Earth. We are the Galactic Council, guardians of 47 civilized species across this region of space. We have observed your species for some time now. You have developed faster than expected, spreading to your nearby planets and moons. This brings you to our attention. President Maria Santos of the United Earth Government watched the message from her office in Geneva, her hands clasped tight enough to turn her knuckles white. Around her, military advisors and scientists stood in silence, absorbing every word. Thelraxis continued, his tone growing colder. However, your development concerns us. You possess nuclear weapons, biological weapons, and show tendencies toward violence and self-destruction. Your entertainment glorifies war. Your history is written in blood. Such species require guidance before they become threats to galactic peace. The ambassador's image gestured, and star maps appeared showing Earth and its small collection of colonies on Mars, Europa, and Titan. Red markers surrounded them, indicating the presence of alien ships, hundreds of them. The Galactic Council extends this offer to all emerging species. You have 30 standard cycles, approximately 30 of your Earth days to accept integration into our civilization. You will dismantle your military forces. You will surrender control of your government to council advisors. You will accept classification as a Category 3 probationary species, with full rights to be granted once you prove yourselves civilized. President Santos felt her stomach drop. She looked at General James Morrison, head of Earth's United Military Command. His face was carved from stone, betraying no emotion, but she knew him well enough to see the fury burning behind his eyes. If you refuse, Thelraxis said, and now his voice carried something like pity, the Council will be forced to integrate you by other means. We do not wish for violence, but we cannot allow a potentially dangerous species to threaten galactic stability. Our peacekeeping forces are already positioned around your outer settlements. They will not fire unless you force our hand. Choose wisely. Choose peace. The message ended, leaving only silence in its wake. For 3 days, the United Earth Government tried diplomacy. They sent messages of greeting, offered cultural exchanges, proposed treaties of mutual cooperation. Every message went unanswered. On the 4th day, they received a response. It was brief. Your attempts at negotiation are noted but unnecessary. Accept integration or face consequences. You have 26 cycles remaining. President Santos called an emergency session with leaders from every nation. The debate raged for hours. Some argued for acceptance, claiming humanity stood no chance against a civilization spanning dozens of worlds. Others demanded resistance, refusing to surrender Earth's hard-won freedom to alien overlords. Still others suggested a middle path, accepting integration while secretly maintaining some autonomy. General Morrison listened to it all with growing frustration. Finally, he stood, his voice cutting through the arguments like a whip crack. With all respect, we're missing the point. They're not offering us a choice. They're offering us slavery with fancy words wrapped around it. Category 3 probationary species. That means we'd have no rights, no voice, no control over our own destiny. But their technology, said Chancellor Wei of the Asian Federation. General, they have ships beyond our understanding. Weapons we can barely imagine. How can we possibly fight them? Morrison smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. The same way our ancestors fought every empire that tried to conquer them. By being meaner, smarter, and more willing to bleed than they ever expected. The next day, a shuttle launched from Mars base, carrying Earth's official diplomatic delegation. They were granted permission to dock with the Council flagship, a vessel so massive it had its own gravity. Ambassador Thelraxus received them in a chamber that seemed carved from crystal, beautiful and cold. Dr. Sarah Okafor led the human delegation. She was a xenobiologist who had spent her career dreaming of this moment, first contact with alien life. Now that dream had become a nightmare, but she held her composure. "Ambassador," she said, bowing slightly, "we come seeking clarification on the terms of integration. Surely there's room for negotiation, for compromise that respects both our peoples." Thelraxus looked at her the way a teacher might look at a slow child. "Dr. Okafor, there is no negotiation. The Council has integrated 217 species over the past 3,000 years. The process is well established. You will find it quite painless if you do not resist. But we're not asking to threaten anyone," Dr. Okafor pressed. "We simply want to maintain our sovereignty, our right to govern ourselves. We can coexist peacefully without integration." The ambassador's expression, alien as it was, clearly conveyed disappointment. "Your species is young. You do not understand the dangers you pose to yourselves and others. We have seen species like yours before. Left unchecked, you either destroy yourselves or become aggressors. The Council exists to prevent such tragedies." "And if we refuse?" Dr. Okafor asked quietly. Thelraxus was silent for a moment, then gestured to a view screen. It showed Mars from orbit, with Council ships positioned around it like a noose. "Then we will be forced to act for your own good. Your Mars colony houses 80,000 people. Such installations are fragile in the void of space. Accidents can happen to those who resist peace." Dr. Okafor felt ice flood her veins. It was a threat, delivered with the calm assurance of someone who had never been told no. She looked at her fellow diplomats, saw the same realization in their eyes. These aliens, for all their talk of civilization and peace, were bullies. Sophisticated, technologically advanced bullies, but bullies nonetheless. The delegation returned to Earth with grim news. The Council would not negotiate. They would not compromise. It was surrender or war, and war seemed impossible to win. That night, President Santos called an emergency meeting in a bunker deep beneath Geneva. Only her most trusted advisors attended. General Morrison, Admiral Chen of the Space Defense Force, Dr. Okafor, and a dozen others representing Earth's greatest military and scientific minds. "Options," Santos said simply. Morrison stood, activating a holographic display. "They have superior technology, numbers, and firepower. In a straight fight, they'll crush us in hours. So we don't fight straight. We fight dirty." "Explain," Santos said. What followed was 4 hours of intense planning. They examined everything they knew about the Council ships, their tactics, their technology. Slowly, a pattern emerged. The Council fought wars like chess matches, precise and controlled. Their weapons were designed for clean, efficient victories. Their tactics assumed rational opponents who understood when they were beaten. Humanity, Morrison argued, would give them something they had never encountered. An enemy that didn't fight fair, didn't follow rules, and was willing to sacrifice everything rather than kneel. As dawn broke over Geneva, President Santos made her decision. She looked around the room at the exhausted faces of Earth's defenders and spoke with quiet conviction. "Send a message to all colonies, all military installations, all defense forces. Tell them to prepare. We're not surrendering. When that deadline expires, we're going to teach the Galactic Council why you should never corner a predator." Outside, the sun rose on Earth's last days of peace. Overhead, invisible to the naked eye, Council ships waited with patient confidence. They had done this hundreds of times before. They expected fear, panic, and eventual submission. They had no idea what was coming. The Galactic Council had existed for over 3,000 years, without ever truly understanding war. This was not because they were peaceful by choice, but peaceful by nature. Evolution had shaped them differently than it had shaped humanity. Ambassador Thelraxus belonged to the Velshara, one of the founding species of the Council. His people evolved on a world of endless plains and gentle herbivores. They developed intelligence to organize vast herds, to predict weather patterns, to build great cities of cooperation. Violence was rare in their history, seen as a failure of communication rather than a tool of statecraft. The same was true for most Council species. They came from worlds where predators were small or absent, where cooperation meant survival. When they reached for the stars and encountered others like themselves, forming the Council was natural. War, when it happened, was a carefully managed affair. Ships fired warning shots. Economic sanctions were imposed. At worst, orbital strikes destroyed military targets with surgical precision until the opponent surrendered. The concept of total war, of fighting to the last breath, of scorched earth and mutually assured destruction, these were alien to them in every sense of the word. Humanity was different. In a secure facility beneath the Rockies, General Morrison stood before a gathering of Earth's military elite. On the screens behind him scrolled thousands of years of human history. Wars, battles, sieges, and campaigns that had shaped civilization through blood and fire. "Gentlemen, ladies," Morrison began, his voice carrying the weight of command. "What you're looking at is our greatest advantage. The Council thinks we're primitives with crude weapons. They're right about the weapons, but dead wrong about the primitives part. We've been perfecting the art of killing for 10,000 years. He pulled up an image of the Council flagship. Sleek, beautiful, clearly designed by minds that valued elegance over aggression. Look at their ships. No armor to speak of, all energy shields. Their weapons are plasma cannons and particle beams. Effective but predictable. They've been fighting the same way for centuries because it works against enemies who fight like they do." Admiral Chen, commander of Earth's small space defense force, stepped forward. She was 55, with gray streaking her black hair and eyes that had seen humanity's first stumbling steps into space. "We've been studying their patterns. Every engagement they've had follows the same doctrine. Form battle lines, exchange fire at medium range, wait for shields to fail, then demand surrender. It's ritualized. Civilized." "We're not civilized," Morrison said with a grim smile. "Not by their definition, and that's going to save us." Over the next 3 weeks, Earth transformed into a fortress. Not the fortress the Council expected, but something far more dangerous. Every advantage humanity had ever developed through millennia of warfare was brought to bear. On Luna, the moon base that had been built for mining and research was retrofitted. Its mass drivers, designed to launch ore containers back to Earth, were recalibrated. Engineers worked around the clock, turning peaceful equipment into weapons that could accelerate projectiles to a significant fraction of light speed. The Council's sensors detected increased activity but dismissed it. Their analysis said the humans were probably evacuating civilians. They were wrong. In the asteroid belt, miners had been working for decades, pulling precious metals from ancient rocks. Now those miners became guerrilla fighters. Their small ships, designed for maneuverability in tight spaces, were fitted with salvaged weapons and homemade explosives. They looked like civilian vessels because they were civilian vessels. The Council wouldn't see them coming. On Earth itself, every major city descended into controlled chaos. Factories that built cars retooled to build missiles. Chemical plants that made fertilizer started making something far more explosive. Computer programmers, hackers, and cybersecurity experts were recruited into military service. Their mission was simple but unprecedented: break into the Council's networks and tear them apart from within. Dr. Sarah Okafor found herself leading a team she never expected to command. Xenobiologists, psychologists, and cultural analysts, all working to answer one question: how do you terrify an enemy that's never known real fear? Their psychology is completely different from ours, she explained to the Joint Chiefs of Staff. They evolved as prey animals. Their fear response is to freeze or flee, not fight. They've never encountered a predator species that reached the stars. Can we use that? Admiral Chen asked. Absolutely, Dr. Okafor replied. Every decision they make assumes rational actors following predictable patterns. Show them chaos, show them unpredictability, and their doctrine falls apart. They'll panic because panic is hardwired into them. A young programmer named Marcus Webb made a breakthrough that changed everything. He had been analyzing the Council's communication protocols, the code that let their ships talk to each other. What he found made him laugh out loud in the middle of the night, startling his colleagues. They have no security, he explained, his eyes wide with disbelief. I mean, they have encryption, but it's designed to prevent accidents, not attacks. They've never had to defend against hostile intrusion because everyone in the Council follows the same protocols. It's like they left all their doors unlocked because they've never been robbed. Within days, Marcus and his team had developed viruses, worms, and Trojans specifically designed to exploit Council systems. They couldn't destroy the alien ships with code alone, but they could blind them, confuse them, turn their own computers against them. In modern warfare, information was everything. Earth was about to teach the Council what it meant to fight blind. As the deadline approached, the Council fleet around Mars grew confident. Their sensors showed Earth's military preparing for something, but nothing that worried them. A few dozen primitive warships, some orbital platforms, scattered defenses. Ambassador Thelraxis reviewed the intelligence reports with satisfaction. They will resist briefly, he told his subordinates. It is natural for young species to test their strength before accepting reality. We will disable their weapons systems, perhaps destroy 1 or 2 ships to demonstrate our superiority. And then they will surrender. By this time next week, Earth will begin proper integration. His tactical officer, a younger Velshara named Kaelith, was less certain. Ambassador, some of their vessel movements seem irregular. They're not following standard defensive formations. Thelraxis waved a dismissive hand. They are amateurs, Kaelith. Do not expect them to understand proper military organization. They will learn from us. What the Council couldn't understand was that chaos was a strategy. Irregular movements weren't mistakes. They were doctrine. Humanity had learned long ago that unpredictability was a weapon. You couldn't be targeted if the enemy couldn't predict where you'd be. You couldn't be countered if your tactics made no sense. On Earth, President Santos gave the order that every military commander had prepared for. All forces, this is Alpha Protocol, execute when ready. The deadline expired at midnight, Greenwich Mean Time. The Council fleet began its advance toward Earth, moving in perfect formation. 300 ships, a force that had subjugated entire worlds, advancing with the confidence of inevitable victory. They expected missiles, lasers, perhaps a desperate charge by Earth's handful of warships. What they got was something else entirely, something that would echo across the galaxy and change the Council forever. Admiral Chen sat in the command center beneath Geneva, watching the tactical displays. Her officers were tense, waiting for her order. She thought about her daughter, serving on one of the defense platforms. She thought about her parents who had fled a war-torn Earth decades ago, dreaming of peace among the stars. She thought about humanity's long, bloody history of survival against impossible odds. "Gentlemen," she said quietly, her voice carrying to every ship, every station, every soldier preparing to fight. "We didn't come this far as a species by giving up when things looked bad. Our ancestors fought with rocks and spears. We fought with swords and shields. We fought with muskets and cannons and nuclear bombs. Today we fight with everything we have, and we show these aliens what it means to corner a predator." She paused, then smiled. "Light them up." Across human space, from Luna to the asteroid belt to the hidden platforms in Jupiter's orbit, weapons that the Council had never imagined came online. The trap was set. The prey had teeth. And the Galactic Council was about to learn a lesson written in fire and blood. The age of human warfare had come to the stars. The Council fleet crossed the threshold of Earth's defensive zone with absolute confidence. 300 warships arranged in the traditional formation advanced at precisely calculated speeds. Their shields hummed with power, their weapons were charged, and their crews operated with the calm efficiency of those who had never known defeat. Ambassador Thelraxis stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching Earth grow larger in the view screen. The blue-green planet looked peaceful, beautiful even. Soon it would be under proper guidance. Another success story for the Council's civilizing mission. He felt a touch of satisfaction at a job about to be completed. "Distance to Luna?" he asked his navigation officer. "Approaching optimal range for initial display of force, Ambassador. Recommend we target their lunar installations first. A demonstration should encourage immediate surrender." Thelraxis nodded. "Make it so. One precise strike on their largest facility. No casualties if possible. We are teachers, not murderers." That was when the moon opened fire. The mass drivers had been disguised as mining equipment hidden in plain sight. Now they revealed their true purpose. Tungsten rods, each weighing several tons, accelerated to 30% of light speed. They crossed the distance between Luna and the Council fleet in seconds. There was no warning, no time to react. The first projectile struck the Velshara cruiser, Peaceful Dawn. The Council shields, designed to dissipate energy weapons, might as well have been paper. The tungsten rod passed through them like they didn't exist, driven by simple Newtonian physics. Kinetic energy doesn't care about shield frequencies or energy absorption. Momentum is momentum. The rod punched through the cruiser's hull, through its internal compartments, through its reactor core, and out the other side. The ship exploded, splitting in half as its power plant went critical. 43 crew members died in an instant. It was the first Council combat death in over a century. 20 more rods followed the first. Council ships tried to maneuver, but their tactical doctrine had no response to this. They were used to energy weapons that could be tracked, anticipated, defended against. These were just chunks of metal traveling at relativistic speeds. No energy signature, no lock-on warning, just sudden catastrophic impact. 5 ships were destroyed in the first volley. 7 more were crippled, their hulls breached, their systems failing. Evasive maneuvers. Thelraxus shouted, his calm shattered. All ships scatter formation. Return fire on lunar surface. But scattering broke the Council's carefully planned formation. Ships moved into each other's firing solutions. Coordination collapsed, and that was when the second wave hit. From the asteroid belt, dozens of small craft emerged. They looked like mining vessels because they were mining vessels. Crude, ugly, bristling with improvised weapons and explosive charges. They flew in patterns that made no tactical sense, weaving and spinning, accelerating and decelerating randomly. Council targeting computers couldn't get a lock. The AI couldn't predict where these vessels would be, because the human pilots weren't following any pattern. They were flying on instinct, on intuition, on reflexes honed by decades of dodging space debris in the belt. A mining ship, piloted by a woman named Rosa Martinez who had spent 30 years hauling ice, aimed directly at a Council frigate. Her ship's communications were broadcasting her voice. "This is for Earth, you arrogant bastards." Her ship, packed with enough explosive to level a mountain, struck the frigate at full burn. The explosion tore through the Council ship like tissue paper. Rosa died instantly, as did 97 Council crew members. It was the first deliberate suicide attack the Council had ever encountered. They had no doctrine for it, no defense against it, because the concept was incomprehensible to them. Why would anyone deliberately trade their life for the enemy? They didn't understand humanity's history. They didn't know about kamikaze pilots, suicide bombers, desperate last stands where soldiers held impossible positions, knowing they would die but buying time for others. Sacrifice for the greater good was written into human DNA by 10,000 years of warfare. More mining ships followed Rosa's example. Not all hit their targets, but enough did. The Council fleet was reeling, ships burning, formations scattered, commanders screaming for orders. That was when the cyber attack hit. Marcus Webb and his team had been waiting for this moment. The Council ships were designed to operate as a network, sharing targeting data, coordinating movements, working together with perfect efficiency. That network was now their greatest weakness. The virus spread through Council systems like wildfire. Communications went down. Targeting sensors reported false data. Navigation systems showed incorrect positions. Some ships suddenly thought they were back at their home ports. Others believed they were alone in empty space. The carefully coordinated fleet became a mob of confused, isolated vessels. Admiral Chen watched from Earth, seeing the chaos unfold exactly as planned. "Launch fighters," she ordered. "All wings engage at will." Earth's fighter craft were small, primitive by Council standards, barely capable of reaching orbit. But they were fast, maneuverable, and flown by pilots who treated the three-dimensional battlefield like a video game. Because for many of them, that's how they'd learned. Decades of flight simulators, combat games, and virtual reality training had prepared a generation for this moment. They swarmed the Council ships like angry hornets, too small and numerous to target effectively, firing missiles and railgun bursts at close range. When their weapons ran dry, some pilots deliberately crashed into Council vessels, adding their momentum to the attack. On the Council flagship, Thelraxus watched his fleet die and couldn't comprehend what he was seeing. This wasn't war as he understood it. This was madness, chaos, violence without logic or reason. His tactical officer was dead, killed when a human fighter crashed directly into the bridge view screen, its pilot screaming defiance until the last second. "Pull back," Thelraxus shouted into the failing communication system. "All ships retreat." Immediate withdrawal, but retreat was easier ordered than executed. Council ships designed for careful tactical withdrawals now tried to flee in panic. They crashed into each other, fired weapons wildly, and abandoned all discipline. Humanity's forces pursued them like wolves chasing prey, hitting them again and again. A single human destroyer, its hull scarred and its crew down to half strength, made a final desperate move. Its captain, a man named David Chen, Admiral Chen's nephew, lined up his failing ship with a Council carrier. His reactor was already overloading, his systems failing. He had minutes at best. "This is Destroyer Prometheus," he broadcast on all frequencies. "Earth remembers. Earth fights back, and Earth never surrenders." He slammed his ship into the carrier at full burn. The reactor detonation was visible from Earth, a brief new star in the sky. The carrier and its escort ships were vaporized. David Chen and his crew of 47 became heroes, whose names would be taught to children for generations. The Battle of Luna lasted 4 hours. When it was over, the Council fleet had lost 119 ships destroyed, 68 ships crippled, and thousands of crew members dead or injured. The survivors fled in disorder, jumping to hyperspace as soon as they could calculate coordinates, abandoning damaged vessels that couldn't escape. Earth's losses were severe. Most of Luna's mass drivers were destroyed by return fire. 37 fighter craft were lost. 4 major defensive platforms were gone, human casualties numbered in the thousands. But they had won. Against impossible odds with inferior technology, humanity had bloodied the Galactic Council's nose and sent them running. In the aftermath, Admiral Chen stood in the command center, surrounded by exhausted officers and technicians. Reports were still coming in. Damage assessments, casualty lists, inventory of remaining weapons. The celebration would come later. For now, there was only grim satisfaction and the knowledge that this was just the beginning. President Santos appeared on the main screen from Geneva. Her face was drawn, aged years in a single day. "Admiral, you did it. You stopped them." "For now," Chen replied. "They'll be back. Bigger, angrier, and prepared for our tactics. We hurt them, but we didn't break them. Then we prepare for round 2, Santos said, and we make sure they understand the message. Earth doesn't kneel. Not to anyone." Across Council space, news of the defeat spread like a shockwave. For 3,000 years, the Council had been unopposed, unchallenged, secure in their superiority. Now a single primitive world had shattered that illusion. Some species were horrified. Others were terrified. And a few, the ones who had chafed under Council rule for centuries, felt something they hadn't felt in a long time. Hope Ambassador Thelraxis, his ship limping back to Council space, sent a message that would change everything. His voice was shaken, his confidence destroyed, his worldview shattered. "Council Command, this is Ambassador Thelraxis. Earth has refused integration. They fought back. They used weapons we didn't anticipate, tactics we couldn't counter. They killed our people deliberately, willingly. They sacrificed themselves just to destroy us." He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice carried something the Council had never heard from him before. Fear. "They're not like us. They're predators. Real predators. And they're not going to stop." The Galactic Council chamber had stood for 1,000 years on the world of Thalvis, capital of Council space. Its great dome rose above the city like a monument to civilization itself, built from materials gathered from 47 worlds. Inside, representatives of every member species gathered to debate the single most shocking event in their recorded history. Earth had won. High Counselor Merthus, eldest of the Velshara and leader of the Council for 3 decades, stood at the central podium. His silver skin seemed dimmer than usual, aged by the weight of recent events. Around him, the chamber buzzed with anxious conversation, fear barely hidden beneath diplomatic language. "The human question must be resolved," Merthus announced, his voice cutting through the noise. "We have suffered our greatest military defeat in 3,000 years. 119 ships lost. Over 4,000 crew members dead. This cannot stand." The representative from the Krinth species, a large reptilian being named Sarkoth, rose from his seat. The Krinth were one of the few species in the Council who had evolved as hunters. They had been carefully integrated centuries ago, their aggressive tendencies channeled into Council security forces. Now Sarkoth spoke with barely concealed excitement. "With respect, High Counselor, we did not suffer a defeat. We suffered a lesson. The humans fought with tactics we have forgotten or never knew. They fought like warriors, not diplomats. Perhaps we should learn from them rather than destroy them." Outraged voices filled the chamber. The representative from the Velshara delegation, a female named Selmara, stood trembling with emotion. "Learn from them? They murdered our people. They used suicide attacks, weapons designed purely to kill, tactics without honor or restraint. They are barbarians." "They are survivors," Sarkoth countered, "and they have shown us something we needed to see. We have grown soft, comfortable in our superiority. The humans have reminded us that the universe is not always kind to the weak." The debate raged for hours. Some species demanded immediate retaliation, calling for an armada large enough to overwhelm Earth through sheer numbers. Others urged caution, suggesting negotiation now that humans had proven themselves. A few, like the Krinth, openly expressed admiration for humanity's tactical brilliance. Finally, Merthas called for order. The decision is made. We will assemble an armada, 3,000 ships from 12 species. We will not make the same mistakes twice. We will approach with overwhelming force, destroy their military capabilities from safe distance, and then integrate them properly. The humans will learn that defiance has consequences. The vote was nearly unanimous. Only the Krinth abstained. The Great Armada began to gather, the largest military force the Council had assembled in 500 years. It would take months to organize, but when it came, Earth would have no choice but to surrender. Or so they thought. On Earth, humanity was not idle. Admiral Chen had become the face of Earth's defense, her tactical brilliance celebrated across every nation. But she knew the truth. They had won through surprise and desperation. The Council would not be surprised twice. We can't win a direct fight, she told the assembled military leadership. Their technology is still superior. Their numbers are overwhelming. If we sit here and wait for them to come back, we die. General Morrison nodded agreement. So we don't wait. We take the war to them. The plan was audacious to the point of insanity. Instead of defending Earth, humanity would launch offensive strikes into Council space. They would hit supply lines, destroy shipyards, target military installations. They would make the Council bleed for every light year between them and Earth. Most importantly, they would break the Council's greatest weapon. Unity. Dr. Sarah Okafor had been studying captured Council databases, information pulled from damaged ships during the battle. What she found was illuminating. The Council was not as unified as it appeared. Dozens of species had been integrated against their will. They lived under Council rule, bound by laws they never agreed to, watching their cultures slowly erased in the name of civilization. Some of these species would support us if they knew we existed, she explained to President Santos. They've been waiting for someone to stand up to the Council. We could be that someone. Are you suggesting we start a revolution? Santos asked. I'm suggesting we give them hope, Okafor replied. Show them that the Council can be resisted. That freedom is possible. The first human strike force launched 3 weeks after the Battle of Luna. 5 ships, all that Earth could spare, jumped into Council space using captured navigation data. Their target was a supply depot in the Kelvar system, a hub that fed Council military operations across 3 sectors. Captain Jessica Reeves commanded the strike force from the bridge of the corvette Defiant. She was 32 years old, a veteran of the asteroid belt conflicts and completely terrified. Her entire military career had been peacekeeping operations and pirate suppression. Now she was leading an attack deep in enemy territory. Jump complete, her navigator reported. Kelvar depot ahead. Multiple targets detected. Are they military? Reeves asked. Negative, Captain. Civilian freighters, automated platforms, maybe a dozen security drones. Light resistance. Reeves felt relief wash over her. She had feared attacking civilians, but this was legitimate military infrastructure. All ships execute attack plan. Fast in, fast out, maximum damage. The human ship swept through the depot like a storm. Missiles and railgun fire tore apart storage platforms, destroyed fuel tanks, and crippled freighters. The security drones tried to respond but were overwhelmed in minutes. The entire engagement lasted less than 20 minutes. Before they jumped away, Reeves broadcast a message on all Council frequencies. It was something Dr. Okafor had written, translated into every major Council language. To all species under Council rule. This is Earth. We have been told to surrender, to accept integration, to give up our freedom for your civilization. We refused. We fought back. We won. If we can resist the Council, so can you. You are not alone anymore. The message spread across Council space like wildfire. Within days, similar broadcasts came from other human strike teams hitting targets across a dozen systems. Each message was slightly different, but the core remained the same. Earth was fighting back, and they were winning. The effect on Council morale was devastating. Ships that had been preparing to join the Armada suddenly reported mechanical problems. Crew members began deserting. Some species started openly questioning whether the war against Earth was justified. The Velshara delegation tried to suppress the human broadcasts, but information wanted to be free, especially in an interconnected civilization spanning dozens of worlds. Then humanity escalated. The Kresh shipyards orbited a gas giant in the Talmor system, producing half of the Council's frigate-class vessels. They were heavily defended, considered untouchable. Commander Sarah Okafor, who had taken a combat role after Luna, led a suicide mission against them. Her ship, the destroyer Prometheus II, named after David Chen's heroic sacrifice, jumped into the system alone. Alarms immediately screamed across every defensive platform. Dozens of Council ships moved to intercept. Sarah had maybe 15 minutes before they overwhelmed her. It was enough. She aimed her ship directly at the largest construction platform, pushed her reactor to the red line, and accelerated. Council weapons fire hammered her shields, tore through her hull, killed her crew one by one. Sarah kept flying, ignoring the pain from shrapnel in her side, focused only on the target growing larger in her view screen. Her last transmission was simple: Earth remembers. The Prometheus II struck the construction platform at nearly 10% of light speed. The explosion was visible from 3 planets. The platform was vaporized. 4 ships under construction were destroyed. The shockwave crippled 2 other platforms. The Kresh shipyards, pride of Council industry, would take years to rebuild. Sarah Okafor's sacrifice accomplished more than military damage. It sent a message that resonated across the galaxy. Humans would go anywhere, pay any price to fight for their freedom. There was no safe distance, no secure location. If the Council came for Earth, Earth would come for them. The psychological impact was immediate. Council species began demanding negotiations. The peaceful Felshara species openly protested the war, calling it unjust and immoral. Even some Velshara started questioning whether integrating such a dangerous species was worth the cost. Most significantly, some of the younger species began their own resistance movements. The Coral, integrated only 50 years ago, launched attacks on Council military bases in their home system. They broadcast human messages alongside their own, using Earth's defiance as inspiration for their rebellion. The Council's response was harsh. They crushed the Coral uprising with overwhelming force, but the damage was done. The image of Council benevolence was shattered. Other species watched and wondered. If the Council would kill the Coral for seeking freedom, what did that say about their integration? High Councilor Murthas watched his perfect civilization crumbling and felt something he had never experienced before: helplessness. Earth had done more than defeat a fleet. They had exposed the lie at the heart of the Council. Integration wasn't voluntary. Peace wasn't universal. The Council ruled through fear, disguised as enlightenment. As the Armada continued to gather, as plans were made to crush Earth once and for all, the Armada gathered in the Thalves system like a storm ready to break. 3,000 ships from a dozen species, representing the full military might of the Galactic Council. It was a force that could reduce entire worlds to dust, break civilizations, reshape the political landscape of a sector. It had taken 4 months to assemble, and now it was ready. High Councilor Murtha stood on the observation deck of the Super Dreadnought Unity, watching the fleet conduct final preparations. Each ship was a masterpiece of engineering, a testament to Council technological superiority. Surely, he thought, the humans would see this armada and understand the futility of resistance. But even as he thought this, doubt gnawed at him. In the 4 months since Luna, humanity had launched 17 major strikes across Council space. They had destroyed shipyards, supply depots, and communication hubs. More troubling, they had inspired 3 separate rebellions among junior Council species. The Coral uprising had been crushed, but the Velkari and Tresh were still fighting. The Council was at war on multiple fronts for the first time in centuries. Kalith, now promoted to tactical advisor after his analysis of human warfare proved invaluable, approached Murthas with a data pad. His expression was troubled. "High Councilor, I need to show you something. Our intelligence has intercepted human communications. They're planning something big." Murthas studied the data, his skin paling as he read. "They're planning to attack here? Thalves itself? That's impossible, insane." "That's what we said about Luna," Kalith replied quietly. "And yet they won. Humans don't think like us. To them, attacking the enemy's heart while outnumbered isn't insane. It's doctrine." On Earth, Admiral Chen reviewed the final details of Operation Prometheus. The name had become synonymous with human sacrifice for victory. honoring all those who had given their lives since the war began. This operation would be the largest sacrifice yet. 12 ships, General Morrison said, looking at the force composition. Against their entire home defense fleet. We'll lose everyone. I know, Chen replied, her voice heavy. But we don't need to win. We need to send a message so loud that they can't ignore it. We need to prove that nowhere is safe, that no show of force will make us kneel. President Santos joined them via hologram, looking older than her years. The war had aged everyone. Admiral, are you sure about this? We're talking about potentially killing civilians. We're targeting military and government installations only, Chen assured her. No civilian targets, no genocide. We're not monsters even if they think we are. But yes, there will be civilian casualties. Collateral damage. That's the reality of war. Santos was silent for a long moment. I never wanted this. First contact was supposed to be humanity's greatest moment. Instead, it's become our darkest hour. No, Chen said firmly. Our darkest hour was when we almost surrendered. When we almost gave up our freedom without a fight. This is us showing the galaxy who we are. We're humans. We don't quit. The 12 ships of Operation Prometheus launched from various points around Earth, jumping separately to avoid detection. Each crew knew they weren't coming back. Each crew had volunteered anyway. They ranged from young pilots fresh from training to veterans of Luna, united by one conviction: Earth would not surrender. Commander James Park led the strike force from the cruiser Indomitable. He was 47 years old with 3 children back on Earth and a wife who had begged him not to go. But his brother had died at Luna, and some debts could only be paid in blood. All ships report ready, his communications officer announced. Final jump in 30 seconds. Park looked around his bridge at the faces of people who had become family over months of fighting. Whatever happens in the next hour, know that Earth is proud of you. Humanity is proud of you. We're about to do something they'll talk about for 1,000 years. Jump in 3, 2, 1. The 12 human ships materialized in the heart of Council space, directly above Thalves. Alarm shrieked across the planet. Defense platforms powered weapons. Ships scrambled to intercept. But for a few precious seconds, the humans had surprise on their side. Park targeted the largest military orbital station and fired everything. All ships weapons free. Hit them hard, hit them fast! The battle was chaos from the start. Human ships moved in unpredictable patterns, firing at anything military, broadcasting their defiance on every channel. Council ships tried to intercept but kept getting in each other's way. The 3,000 ship armada that had seemed so impressive was actually a vulnerability. Too many ships in too small a space created congestion, confusion, and friendly fire incidents. The human ship Vengeance, commanded by a woman named Li Wei who had lost her entire family in a council strike on Mars, aimed directly at a government complex. Her ship was already dying, shields down, hull breached, reactor failing. She had maybe seconds left. "This is for Mars," she whispered, and drove her ship into the building at full speed. The explosion tore through the complex, destroying centuries of council records and killing dozens of bureaucrats. It was the first time in 1,000 years that violence had touched the council homeworld. The psychological impact was immeasurable. Aboard the Unity, Mirthas watched the battle in horror. They're actually doing it. They're attacking us here in our home system. This is madness. No, Kyleth said softly, watching the tactical display. This is strategy. They're showing us that the war will never end, that they'll keep coming, keep fighting, keep dying, until either they're extinct or we leave them alone. High Counselor, we need to end this now. The battle lasted 38 minutes. All 12 human ships were destroyed. Their crews, totaling 462 people, died fighting. But they took out 17 council ships, damaged 40 more, destroyed 3 major installations, and killed over 1,000 council personnel. More importantly, they broke something fundamental in the council's psychology. The people of Thalves, safe for millennia, had watched their sky burn. They had seen their government complex destroyed. They had felt fear in their own homes. The illusion of invulnerability was shattered. In the aftermath, as fires still burned on Thalves and debris rained from orbit, High Counselor Mirthas made a decision that would define his legacy. He called an emergency council session, not to plan revenge, but to do something the council had never done in 3,000 years, admit they were wrong. "We cannot win this war," he told the assembled representatives. not without becoming the very monsters we claim to oppose. The humans will not surrender. They will fight to their last breath, and they will take us with them. We have two choices. We can destroy Earth completely, commit genocide against an entire species, or we can negotiate. The chamber erupted in argument. Some demanded total war, others pleaded for peace. The debate raged for hours until Kaelith stood and spoke with quiet conviction. I fought at Luna. I studied their tactics. I've learned their history. Humans are survivors from a world that tried to kill them for millions of years. They developed intelligence not for cooperation like us, but for competition, for hunting, for warfare. They reached the stars not in peace, but through conflict. They are everything we are not. He paused, looking around the chamber, and that's exactly why we need them. Because somewhere out in the galaxy, there are threats we've never faced, species that won't care about our civilization or our enlightenment. When that day comes, we'll need warriors. We'll need humans. The vote was close, but it passed. The Council would negotiate with Earth as equals, not subjects. The meeting was held on a neutral station, halfway between Earth and Council space. Admiral Chen represented humanity, flanked by President Santos and Dr. Sarah Okafor's sister, carrying on her legacy. Kaelith represented the Council, with Mirthas observing remotely. The negotiations were tense. Earth demanded full sovereignty, military independence, and a council seat with voting rights. The Council balked at first, but Chen was firm. "We've proven we can hurt you," she said bluntly. "We've proven we won't stop. You can have us as enemies who will fight you forever, or as allies who will stand with you. Choose." The treaty took 3 weeks to finalize. Earth would join the Council as a full member species, not an integrated subject. They would maintain their military, their government, and their independence. In exchange, they would share certain technologies and provide military consultation to Council forces. The clause that surprised everyone came from Kaelith. "We want human advisors to help train our forces, not to make us killers, but to teach us how to survive against those who are." Chen smiled grimly. "You want us to teach you how to fight. We want you to teach us how to win," Kaelith corrected. The treaty was signed on June 15th Earth calendar, 6 months after first contact. It was celebrated on Earth with parades and memorials for the fallen. The Council received it with mixed feelings, but a growing understanding that the galaxy had changed. 5 years later, when an extragalactic force called the Vex appeared at the edge of Council space, it was human tactical doctrine that saved civilization. Admiral Chen, now Supreme Commander of Combined Council Forces, led a fleet that included ships from 47 species. They fought the Vex to a standstill using tactics the Council had once